picture this. You're driving down the New Jersey Turnpike, right? You are completely surrounded by concrete toll booths, bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Oh, and the air just smells like exhaust and stress.
Exactly. But if you step just a few miles off that asphalt, suddenly you're swallowed up by this 1.1 million acre stretch of just dark, deeply evocative wilderness.
It's like stepping onto another planet. You can walk for days without seeing another human being in there.
Right, the trees are stunted, the rivers look like, well, like a dark tea. Welcome to the New Jersey Pine Barrens.
It really is undeniably one of the most contradictory landscapes on the East Coast. I mean, you have this vast, untouched frontier wedged smack between New York City and Philadelphia.
Which brings us to a friendly, maybe slightly sarcastic disclaimer for you today. Because this deep dive, it involves a pretty heavy dose of folklore.
And some highly questionable eyewitness sightings.
Yeah, and centuries-old political smear campaigns. So, just to be clear, we are not endorsing the existence of literal fire-breathing demons flying out of chimneys.
Nor are we taking sides in colonial-era Quaker rivalries.
Right. My job here is to bring my usual hobbyist investigator logic to the table. I really want to know the physical mechanisms of how this weird ecosystem works and, why these bizarre legends actually took root.
And I'll be looking at the empathetic, human side of things. The weird theories, the misunderstood outcasts, and the legendary ghosts that wander these woods.
So our mission for this deep dive is to investigate how a wilderness like this survives the crush of modern civilization.
Right, and the deeply strange stories it bred along the way. But to understand the folklore, you first really have to understand the soil.
The foundation of the entire mystery, honestly.
Precisely. Because this isn't some lush traditional forest. It's built on something locals call sugar sand.
Sugar sand, like it looks like sugar.
Yeah, it's heavily silica-based, highly acidic, and it drains water almost instantly. So early European settlers, they tried to plant their traditional crops there, and the crops just withered and died.
Which is why they called it the Barrens.
Exactly. It was totally hostile to traditional agriculture. But the paradox, and this is the crazy part, is what lies beneath that harsh surface.
The Kirkwood-Cohansey aquifer.
Yes. It's this massive underground reservoir holding, get this, 17 trillion gallons of pure water.
Wait, 17 trillion?
Trillion. Some of the purest water in the United States, just hiding under this barren, hostile surface.
The juxtaposition there is wild. And, the plant life had to evolve to match that contradiction, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are these areas deep in the woods called the pygmy pine plains.
Okay.
You have pitch pines and scrub oaks. Now, in a normal forest, these would grow into towering canopies. But here, they max out at like 5 to 10 feet tall.
So it's basically a dwarf forest.
Yeah, sculpted by harsh winds, terrible soil, and frequent, super intense forest fires.
Well, let's stop on the fire aspect for a second, because this is where the logic of this ecosystem gets truly brilliant.
Yeah.
Most people look at a forest fire as sheer destruction.
Right, a tragedy.
But you're telling me these trees actually rely on it.
It is their primary survival mechanism.
Okay, so it's like the mythical phoenix. Let's look at the biology here. These pitch pines have what botanists call serotinous cones.
Which means they're sealed shut, right?
Yeah, sealed completely shut with these extremely thick natural resins. A gentle spring breeze does absolutely nothing to them.
So how do they open?
They require the intense, blistering heat of a raging wildfire to melt that resin. Only then can the cone pop open and release its seeds.
Wow. Literally an ecosystem born of flames.
It gets better. Even if a blaze burns the tree all the way down, just destroys all the needles, the pitch pine keeps dormant buds hiding deep inside its thick bark.
Oh, so it's ready to bounce back.
Exactly. The intense heat stimulates those buds, so the tree resprouts rapidly, while the fire has conveniently cleared out competition like oaks or maples. The fire is basically biological inertia.
Holding back normal forest progression so the pines can just dominate the landscape.
Exactly.
Well, that extreme, uncompromising environment really dictated who could survive there. Because you couldn't grow standard cash crops, the area became a refuge.
For people who needed to disappear.
Exactly. We are talking about poor farmers, runaway slaves seeking freedom, military deserters, and even brigands or pirates.
Wait, pirates in the Pine Barrens?
Yeah. Captain Kidd supposedly buried treasure along the coastal edges of the pines.
So it's just the ultimate off-the-grid hideout.
It was. But that isolation came with a heavy cost. The people who lived there eventually embraced the term Pineys, but outsiders heavily stigmatized them.
Because they lived differently.
Right. They survive by harvesting the natural resources, like gathering sphagnum moss.
I want to pause on that for a second because we picture moss today and think, like, who cares?
Right, it's just swamp weed.
Yeah. But sphagnum moss was highly valuable back then. It acts as this incredible natural sponge. It holds a ridiculous amount of water.
So they used it for shipping.
Yeah, nurseries used it to pack plants for shipping across the country, and it even has antiseptic properties. It was a crucial cash crop, but only if you knew where to find it.
A crucial crop, sure, but one that required you to trudge through swamps all day rather than clock into a factory.
True.
Because these residents lived entirely outside the industrial norm, early 20th century society viewed them with deep, deep suspicion.
Which leads to that study, right?
Yes. It culminated in this infamous eugenic study on a local family that was given the pseudonym the Calicax.
The methodology of that study is just horrifying to look back on.
It truly is. The researcher, this guy, Henry H. Kennard, he wanted to prove that traits like criminality and poverty were purely genetic.
Right.
So he traced two lineages of one Revolutionary War soldier, one legitimate, one illegitimate, and he essentially falsified his data.
He doctored the photos, didn't he?
He did. He manipulated photographs of the Pine Barrens residents, adding dark shadows under their eyes, just to portray the locals as these congenital idiots and villains.
That is wild.
The psychological impact was devastating. It painted the entire region as a den of backward, dangerous outcasts in the national press.
Okay, let's follow that logic for a second. You take a deeply isolated group of misunderstood outcasts, put them in a dark, fire-scarred dwarf forest, and then layer on a heavy dose of societal prejudice.
A recipe for disaster.
An explosive recipe for urban legends. You don't just get regular ghost stories in an environment like that. You get a legendary monster.
You really do. And this brings us to the weirdest, most enduring legend of the region, the Jersey Devil.
Here we go.
The classic folklore dates all the way back to 1735 in this small settlement called Leeds Point.
Okay.
We have a woman known as Mother Leeds. She discovers she's pregnant for the 13th time.
That's a lot of kids.
Right. So in a moment of sheer exhaustion, pain, and frustration, she curses the unborn child. She cries out, "Let the child be the devil."
Which, as far as parenting strategies go, is certainly a bold choice.
A very dark choice.
Yeah.
But according to the legend, the child was born completely normal.
At first.
At first. Because right in front of the midwives, it transformed. It morphed into a terrifying beast. We're talking about a bipedal, wyvern-like creature.
Wyvern meaning like a two-legged dragon.
Yes, like a small dragon standing on two legs, but with leathery bat wings instead of front arms. Plus a horse's head, cloven hooves, a forked tail, and little clawed hands.
That is incredibly specific.
It gets crazier. It started growling, beat everyone in the room with its tail, flew up the chimney, and just vanished into the pines.
Okay, I look at the investigative file here, and this is where I get completely tripped up. Because this wasn't just some campfire story traded by bored locals trying to scare their kids.
No, prominent figures definitely went on the record.
Heavy hitters in American history filed actual sighting reports.
Like who?
Like Commodore Stephen Decatur, the naval hero. The story goes he was visiting the Hanover Mill Works to inspect cannonballs. He sees a flying creature, points a cannon at it, and fires a direct hit that does absolutely nothing. How does a respected military commander claim he shot a cannon at a flying horse without completely ruining his career?
It just speaks to how deeply ingrained the folklore was in the culture.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the only one.
Right.
In the 1820s, Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's older brother, who was living in exile, he claimed he spotted the creature while hunting on his estate in Bordentown.
Napoleon's a brother.
Yeah. He described a strange, winged beast hissing at him from the trees.
So we have naval heroes and European royalty seeing this thing, but honestly, that pales in comparison to the weirdest week in New Jersey history.
Oh, the 1909 panic.
Yes.
Just picture the mass hysteria sweeping through the region. Between January 16th and 23rd, 1909, the entire Delaware Valley essentially loses its collective mind.
Hundreds of encounters published in the papers, right?
Exactly. The creature supposedly attacked a trolley car in Haddon Heights. It swooped down on a social club in Camden. Police officers in New Jersey and Pennsylvania are literally firing their service weapons into the empty sky.
Just complete chaos. Schools close down. Workers refuse to leave their homes. You have vigilante groups and hunters roaming the woods heavily armed, looking for a demon.
It was terror.
So I have to ask the obvious question. How does an entire geographic region hallucinate a bat-winged horse monster for a solid week?
Well, I can hear the skepticism in your voice. You want to tear this apart with logic.
I absolutely do, because the 1909 panic is a masterclass in how to engineer a hoax.
All right, lay it out for us.
So during the peak of the hysteria, the Philadelphia Zoo posts a $10,000 reward for the creature's capture.
Which was a massive amount of money back then.
Huge. Enter a guy named Norman Jeffries. He's a publicist for this failing dime museum in Philadelphia. He knows the museum is about to go bankrupt unless he gets a massive trout fast.
Oh no, what did he do?
He teams up with an animal trainer, buys a live kangaroo from a circus.
Wait, a real kangaroo?
A live kangaroo. And he glues fake bat wings and artificial claws onto the poor animal.
It sounds utterly ridiculous when you say it out loud.
It is ridiculous. They planted fake stories in the newspapers to whip up the panic, then boldly unveiled the captured devil at his museum. And the crowds, they lined up around the block to see.
Actually believed it was a demon.
Yep. Jeffries didn't confess to the hoax until 20 years later.
Okay, so the 1909 panic was fueled by a publicist's hoax and mass hysteria. I grant you that. But let's look at the empathetic core of the original myth.
You mean Mother Leeds?
Yes. There was a real Deborah Leeds living in Leeds Point in the 1700s. Her husband's will from 1736 actually lists 12 children.
Oh, wow. So she was a real person.
She was a real mother dealing with the harsh realities of colonial life. So if 1909 was just a hoax, how did a real colonial woman get transformed into the mother of a monster centuries earlier?
Okay, the origin of the Jersey Devil is basically the colonial era equivalent of a highly toxic, relentless Twitter feud.
A Twitter feud.
We're looking at a prolonged, multi-generational political smear campaign.
Tell me about the Leeds family dynamics then.
So Daniel Leeds was a prominent colonial figure in South Jersey in the late 1600s. He was a Quaker, but he started publishing these almanacs that included astrology, cosmology, and natural magic.
Which I'm guessing the Quakers did not love.
They found it totally blasphemous. They censored his almanacs and literally forced him to destroy them.
So he becomes an outcast among outcasts.
He does, but he refuses to back down. He leaves the Quakers, converts to Anglicanism, and becomes a counselor to the deeply unpopular British royal governor.
Lord Cornbury, right?
Yes. The Quakers view him as a total traitor. So in 1700, the Quaker community publishes a tract publicly denouncing Daniel Leeds, and they title it Satan's Harbinger.
Wait, so they publicly accused him of working for the devil?
Yes. The term Leeds Devil wasn't originally a cryptid, it was just a political insult.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
But it gets worse. Fast forward to 1716, Daniel's son, Titan Leeds, inherits the almanac business, and he gets into a fierce rivalry with another almanac publisher you might have heard of, Benjamin Franklin.
Picking a fight with Ben Franklin seems like a massive strategic error.
A fatal one for his reputation. Franklin, looking to boost sales for Poor Richard's Almanac, satirically uses astrology to predict that Titan Leeds will die in October 1733.
Just as a prank.
Yeah, as a marketing stunt. Titan gets furious and publishes a rant calling Franklin a fool and a liar.
Naturally.
But Franklin, being the ultimate troll, writes back saying, well, my astrology must have been accurate and Titan Leeds must actually be dead because the real Titan wouldn't write something so ungentlemanly. Therefore, this new almanac must have been written by his ghost.
He gaslit the public into believing his rival was a ghost.
He kept calling him a ghost even after Titan actually died a few years later. So you have the local Quaker population already calling the family Satan's Harbinger, Ben Franklin mocking the sun as a resurrected phantom.
It's all piling up.
And here is the biological cherry on top. In 1728, Titan Leeds redesigns the family crest on his almanacs. Do you know what image he chose?
No way.
A wyvern.
A wyvern. A bipedal, bat-winged dragon standing on clawed feet. That is stunning. It's the exact physical description of the monster.
Yep.
Printed right on their family business documents, circulating in the very communities that hated them. Over generations, the political mudslinging, the religious ostracization, the rival publishers, it all just blurred together.
The abstract insult slowly solidified into a literal monster in the oral tradition.
The political smear became a physical beast, although we really cannot ignore the actual biology out in those woods either.
What do you mean?
Well, even if the origin was political, people in the 1800s and 1900s were seeing physical things. You can't blame a flying monster spotted in 1909 entirely on a dead Quaker's almanac.
Good point.
Biologists point out that wayward sandhill cranes occasionally end up in South Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've never seen one, they are enormous birds, about the size of the alleged devil.
Okay, I can see that.
And they have this deafening, trumpeting, blood-curdling call. Imagine hearing that in the pitch-black woods when you've been raised on stories of a flying demon. Your brain just fills in the gaps with the monster you expect to see.
Which brings us to my absolute favorite modern explanation.
Well, the mud guy.
Yes, the outdoorsman Tom Brown Jr. He spent seasons living out in the Pine Barrens wilderness. Now, the mosquitoes there can be vicious, so to protect himself, he would coat his entire body in thick mud.
Which is smart, but terrifying to look at.
Exactly. He recounted multiple occasions where terrified hikers stumbled across this mud-covered wild man in the woods, turned around, and sprinted away, entirely convinced they had just seen the Jersey Devil.
So the devil is basically a phantom cocktail, a mix of political mudslinging, publicist hoaxes, lost birds, and muddy survivalists.
I love that phrase, a phantom cocktail. But you know what fascinates me? While the devil is just a myth, the woods are haunted by physical ghosts.
Physical ghosts.
Yeah, I'm talking about the ruins of dead industries.
Right, the landscape there is deeply melancholic. You mentioned the iron earlier, with Commodore Decatur's cannonball.
The industrial logic of this region is a totally forgotten chapter of American history. Before the Industrial Revolution took off in major cities, the Pine Barrens were a manufacturing powerhouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Revolutionary War and the War of 1812 were heavily fueled by Pinelands iron, but they didn't mine it from deep underground shafts. They used bog iron.
Meaning they literally pulled it directly from the swamps.
Yes, dredged it right from the riverbeds, but think about it. How do you smelt iron in a sandy pine forest?
You need a lot of heat.
You need 3 distinct elements: iron ore, fuel, and a flux to remove the impurities. So they had the bog iron from the water. They had an endless supply of pitch pines to make charcoal for fuel.
And for the flux.
They hauled in huge piles of clam and oyster shells from the nearby coast to provide the necessary lime. It was a perfectly self-contained industrial ecosystem.
Until the technology shifted.
Exactly. In the 1840s, anthracite coal was discovered in Pennsylvania. It burned hotter, and it was much cheaper to mine than making charcoal out of pine trees.
So the industry just died.
The Pinelands iron economy collapsed overnight. These booming towns were completely abandoned to the elements.
Which leaves us with these gorgeous, eerie ghost towns today. I mean, if you were listening to this while driving up the I-95 corridor, you are passing within miles of buried industrial ruins right now.
It's crazy to think about.
If you hike into the pines, you find places like Batstow Village. It's been restored so you can see the old mansion, the sawmill, the general store.
But then there are the wilder ones.
Yeah, you venture further to places like Martha, where the old bog iron furnace is just buried and fenced off in the middle of the woods to protect it. Or Harrisville, where you find the moss-covered stone ruins of a 19th century paper mill sitting entirely alone among the trees.
Or the Brooksbury Brick Factory. Just these sprawling brick arches slowly being swallowed by the encroaching roots and vines.
And it is not just industrial ruins either. Deep in the woods, there's a 12-foot stone monument.
For the pilot, right?
Yes, marking the exact spot where Emilio Carranza, a Mexican national hero and aviator, crashed his plane during a thunderstorm in 1928. Finding a towering obelisk in the middle of an untouched forest is so surreal.
It feels like an entire lost civilization hiding just off the highway.
I think that melancholic atmosphere is exactly why the actual folklore ghosts of the Pine Barrens, like the ones locals actually tell stories about, are quite different from the aggressive Jersey Devil.
They're not monsters.
No, they are gentle spirits tied to this lost history.
What kind of spirits?
Well, you have the Black Doctor. This is the spirit of Dr. James Still. He was a real 19th century African-American doctor who practiced natural medicine in the isolated communities of the Pines.
Oh, wow.
Legend says his spirit still wanders the woods to come to the aid of lost or injured travelers.
That's actually really beautiful.
Or the golden-haired girl. A spirit in white looking out toward the sea, mourning a lover lost in a shipwreck. There is even a white stag that supposedly appears to rescue travelers in danger, and a black dog that, unlike demonic black dog myths in Europe, is completely harmless.
So the folklore reflects a deep affection for the outcasts and the lost.
Exactly.
But here's the ultimate twist in the logic for me. Without those spooky stories, without the isolation and the buried ruins, this entire ecosystem, all 1.1 million acres of it, might have been paved over entirely.
Oh, you're talking about the Jetport plan.
Yes. In the 1960s, state authorities looked at this vast, cheap, sparsely populated land between New York and Philly, and they drew up a staggering proposal.
It was huge.
They planned to build the largest supersonic jetport on Earth right on top of the Pine Barrens, and then construct a sprawling new city around it.
It would have paved right over the Kirkwood-Cohansey Aquifer. 17 trillion gallons of pure water just ruined.
An utter ecological disaster. But then in 1968, a writer named John McPhee published a book simply titled The Pine Barrens.
It changed everything.
It really did. He beautifully captured the deep history, the fragile fire ecology we talked about earlier, and the quirky, proud culture of the Pineys. The book just caught the public's imagination.
It showed the country that this wasn't just some empty wasteland waiting for concrete. It was a vital, totally unique world.
And it brought national attention to the region at the exact moment it was needed most. It helped persuade lawmakers to act.
So they saved it.
By 1978, Congress passed legislation creating the Pinelands National Reserve. It was the very first national reserve in the country. They threw a protective blanket over 1.1 million acres, saving the aquifer and preserving the ecosystem.
It is a profound marriage of weird, empathetic folklore and unyielding ecological logic. The bizarre stories kept developers out just long enough for science to realize how deeply valuable the land actually was.
It's a miracle, really.
Today, it stands as a living time capsule that somehow survived the relentless urbanization of the East Coast.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We want to leave you with this final thought.
Take a closer look at the local urban legends or the monsters in your own hometown.
Yeah, think about what they represent. Are there really tales of the supernatural? Or, when you peel back the layers of mud and rumor, are you just staring at the ghostly, misunderstood remnants of a centuries-old political smear campaign?